Good evening, my name is Salma Yaqoob. I'm an elected councillor on Birmingham City Council and leader of the Respect Party. I have to say, having just heard Fiona speak, I feel almost that I don't even need to be here speaking to you because she has summarised just about everything. And you know, it's not true when you said that it was wrong to say that the people on the convoy were heroes. I think people like Fiona are heroes, true heroes. The fact that you took that time out, took that personal risk, and through your words, I really believe you transported us to that place. I feel I was there in the tunnels. I feel I've been to Gaza with you. I think that's the power of having such eyewitness accounts. That's why it's so important that meetings like this are organised up and down the country, and especially in a university like Birmingham University. It's been 20 years since I was last here, but not a lot seems to have changed on campus. As I was coming in, I saw your red brick paper, and here on page 2, Speaker Ayres' view on Israel. And did you know that last Monday the Jewish Society had a discussion on, is Israel an apartheid state? Were you invited to that? Did you know that the sole purpose, according to this, was to highlight the fundamental differences between the situation in Israel now and that of South Africa in the past? So they are on the offensive. And I'll tell you why. It's because they feel very defensive right now. And Fiona was right. This operation that they did in Gaza last year, apart from the humanitarian catastrophe that's been unleashed, what they didn't plan for, the Israelis, was actually a little bit of an own goal. They were so much into their boasting and their bragging, and they'd got so used to their spin going unchallenged, that they were not prepared for when the pictures went around the world, that ordinary people would have what ordinary people's reactions would be, which is absolute horror at seeing this kind of brutal assault on men, women and children. And what they didn't anticipate was that all around the world, not just the Middle East, but all around the world, people would be coming out and protesting and expressing their disgust, despite whatever the government mumblings and rumblings and lack of condemnation was. Ordinary people, I can pay testament to that, right here in Birmingham. There aren't many Palestinians in Birmingham, that's the truth of it. There aren't that many Arabs. But I tell you what, we had the largest pro-Palestinian gathering that I can recall in the city whilst that assault was going on. And I'm proud that we helped to organise that, and young people were predominantly the ones who turned up to it. That's what shocked the Israelis. That's why West Streeting is meeting with these ministers from Israel, because they are worried that their spin is finally being exposed and is coming down. A new generation is growing up which isn't going to be apologetic, which isn't going to be afraid to challenge the lies and myths that Israel has, I have to say, pretty successfully up till now managed to put about. And one of those is this one, about Israel not being an apartheid state. When you've got Bishop Desmond Tutu, I think knows a little thing or two about what living in an apartheid state is like. Says clearly that Israel is an apartheid state. I believe him rather than Birmingham University Jewish Society, don't you? And I think it's about time we armed ourselves with facts. Because yes, it's very easy to become emotional about this. And the passion can sometimes almost distract from the arguments that we need to be conducting. So first of all, I would say as students, your job here is to learn and do your studies and get qualified, but let's equip ourselves with the facts when it comes to the issues that we care so passionately about. And if somebody says to you, you can't use the word apartheid, because one thing they always try to do is make certain things unsayable. That's the first point of attack. I'd quote back Ehud Barak, Israel Defense Minister, who himself used the word when he said that actually Israel is ending up as an apartheid state par excellence. That's an independent newspaper. So we don't need Birmingham University trying to do a cover-up when they themselves are exposing that fact. Because even now, in 21st century, we are seeing a country where if you're Jewish, you can go and live in that land, regardless of whether you had any ties with it or not. But But if you are Palestinian, even if your parents and grandparents have lived on that land, you do not have a right to return. I would say that's racist and apartheid, and I think most people would agree with that. I think a country which excludes its citizens from being able to live on its own land, when you're talking about Israel itself, it's like saying, oh look, the Arabs, they've got votes in Israel. That's one they try to put forward as a reason for why they're not so racist. But when you actually look at the facts, when you see that 93% of the land within the borders of Israel is actually reserved for Jewish people only. It's reserved through the Jewish National Fund. Non-Jews are not even allowed to live on that. There are 20% non-Jews in Israel, that's true. But they have to live on 7%, the remaining 7%. And they have unequal rights to even basic amenities like water. And you know, the parallel with South Africa is actually an underestimation. Because people know how disgusting apartheid was, because the world mobilised against the apartheid state of South Africa, the Israelis don't like that analogy. But even the South Africans have said actually the Palestinians are living in conditions that even we did not face. They did not face F-16 bombers coming and smashing their homes up and killing their children in front of the world's eyes in the way that the Palestinians have been undergoing and continue to undergo. And yes, they had the Bantustans. They had to have these separate IDs. And yes, the Palestinians have checkpoints and they have to show their IDs. But not just that, they can't even leave the place. Never mind getting away to get out of it. If you're a citizen of Gaza, you are locked in. It is in effect an open concentration camp. It is a prison. I mean, it's amazing that people like Fiona, myself even, I can get on a plane, go there, travel freely to Israel, to Gaza, come back, and it's just the inconvenience of the travel. There's no question that I have a right to go there. And yet the people who live there have these walls, literal walls, penning them in. So of course there is an injustice going on. Of course there are huge double standards being implemented. And the hope is first of all in the spirit of the Palestinian people. It's so inspiring. You know, they don't see themselves as victims. They're not asking for our pity or our charity in that sense. In fact, they're the most generous and giving of people and the most dignified. They're not asking for handouts. They're simply asking for the basic humanity to be acknowledged and respected. And the indignity of having to tunnel down 40 feet for basic food, amenities, that's a disgrace on all of us. Because yes, we help subsidise Israel. Our country has preferential trade agreements with Israel, £2 billion worth just in the last 5 years alone. And when we sit here and say that we feel for our brothers and sisters as humanity, I'm not Palestinian, but I feel that those people are my brothers and sisters and that point of what they are suffering at the moment. But when I see that those planes, those F-16s actually have some parts made by our tax money being paid, £20 million a year goes in helping supply weapons to Israel from Britain alone. Of course, we have part. I'm with Malcolm X. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And so my message is, we have to be active in this. Being passive in it, I feel, and it might sound harsh, but we are, whether we like it or not, complicit and part of the suffering if we don't make an active stance. And the good news is stances are being made. Although, you know, you were saying how sometimes the powerful may have the positions and not reflecting the feelings of the majority. I don't belong to a huge party. We're the largest authority in Europe, in Birmingham. There's only 3 of us respect councillors, but you know what? We've got a cross-party motion debating the issue of Gaza, debating the issue of boycotting countries who refuse to comply with UN resolutions, and Israel happens to not comply with over 100 UN resolutions.